Hello and welcome back to the XVI Podcast. I am Mark, your host, and this week we are talking about music. So I am joined by Kurt.
Hello.
Sakife.
Hey guys.
And introducing our own composer, John.
Hello there.
So as I said, we're talking about music this week. We're going to talk about music in general as well as music in video games. Try and get everyone involved as much as possible. So we'll start with a really easy topic of how important is music in creating an atmosphere in video games?
It's essential, really, to give a gamer that sense of realism. It's like if you watch a film without the music or without the sound or whatever, it's so much different. You don't connect with it as much. Because if you're talking real. It doesn't even have to be realism, but getting a gamer to interact with it. If you're just running around a level and there's no music, your brain thinks, hang on, something's not right here, there's no sound. Or even if they've got the sound effects or whatever, if there's no music to keep things moving, it just doesn't connect properly.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's all about building that atmosphere. I wish that the copyright laws hadn't changed. Because what I was planning on doing for this podcast was having a comparison. So, like, choose a scene from a game, play it without the music, then play it with the music, and sort of demonstrate what the differences would be. But obviously, you can't do that these days, which is quite annoying.
I was going to say we could do that if there's some kind of open source project, and I could chuck some music in there for you.
I mean, OpenTTD is open source, so could play that with and without the music and see what difference that makes. I was going to say there's a lot of games now, like there's Beat Saber on VR, where the game is the music essentially. You move in time with the music. There was another one that came out a few years ago now. It was kind of like Wipeout, but you were racing on a music track. So again,
I know that one.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was called?
No.
Like, you had to move in time with the music. I remember that much.
There's also like Osu
Oh yeah.
that a lot of people play. It's mainly about tapping on the screen, like to the rhythm of the music.
I saw gameplay of another game recently. Again, I can't remember what it's called, which is not very good. But you play as a gorilla, and you're going around this building. And every time, like, you shoot people, you beat people up, you knock them through walls. But every time you do it, instead of like a punch noise or a gunfire noise, it's a cymbal or a drum.
That's hilarious. What was that called?
I wish I could remember. I know Outside Extra had a feature on it. But yeah, that was really good, because again, the game is the music. You make the music as you play.
I definitely agree with the first point that John said, that, whatever the game may be, whatever genre or category, music is very essential. Like, if you're playing a horror game, like, let's play Resident Evil 2, yeah? Like, certain sounds and musics can, like, they create tension. And it just attacks your senses, because you only have, like, sight, hearing when you're playing a game. You can't smell, you can't taste, you can't feel, can you? Unless you're using VR, I guess, but it really does need to be emphasized a lot. Otherwise, how are you going to create the scene? So in an action, like when you're in a fight compared to when you're just walking around, when you're just casually strolling around, it's all calm, peaceful music depending on what area you're in. So if you're in a jungle area, you've got like the beats, tiki drums, standard typical tropical sounds as well. If you're in like let's say I don't know, city area, you got like something more upbeat or maybe like factory based or stuff. But whenever you get into a fight, that drastically changes to something.
They've got that kind of fight music, haven't they?
Yeah,
that intense, fast music.
Exactly. So I think it is very important to have music in a game, 100%.
It's interesting. The first thing you said, you jumped straight to the genre that I was thinking of with music in video games, which is kind of like the survival horror genre. Particularly games like Resident Evil. The suspense is mostly made through sound more than through visual, and the music is a big part of that.
100%. Yeah, like when you're walking through the corridors and all you can hear is like them crawlers just like clicking their tongues or something in the background, and you're like, oh damn, I know what's there.
I was thinking of games like Pokemon as well, where you're walking around. Each route has its own theme tune. Each town has its own theme tune.
Yeah, 100%.
When you come across another trainer, like there's no sound effects as such. It's all done through music.
No, it's like yeah, Pokemon's a perfect example. Like, you know, when you said that you go to a different town, you like when you go through a cave, it goes like like that creepy haunted music, like something's always gonna get you from the back. Yeah, and when you go through like the grassy areas, a nice fine tune, and then you go to like different cities and they got like some nice theme songs. It just kind of goes with the elements, doesn't it? Like in that area,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
it creates such a lovely, vivid picture.
You mentioned fight music as well. So when you're in, I was just thinking we were playing Fallout the other night, and I knew the only reason I knew there was an enemy nearby still was because the fight music was still playing. So even then, as well as creating an atmosphere and creating suspense and projecting emotions, I think music's also a signifier. So in that case, like I said, the only reason I knew there was an enemy still was because the music hadn't stopped.
It also helps kind of for the. I was talking about realism, but placing where you're at in whatever. Because I'm just thinking, games like Skyrim or Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls games, you have that soundtrack, and you know, yes, I'm in this fantasy world. It's like I've been taken back to the Vikings or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's got that music. It places it.
See, this is the funny thing that I realized when listening to music. Like, you know, in the real life, when you're ever in your fight or when you're like you're adventuring or something, there's never music going on, is there? But we like to listen to music, like create it, and then picture in our head this little adventurous scene that we have. And then whenever we play a game, you feel so much more epic when you're beating a bunch of baddies. Like you said, John, in Skyrim, like, whenever you fight a dragon, an epic soundtrack just comes on when you're like slashing it to bits or shooting arrows at it. You know, it's just empowering. That's what it is.
Yeah, a game I would like to talk about that like uses music and sounds in a really creative way is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. If you've heard
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah, I have. That's the mental health one, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It really invokes fear and unease throughout the game rather than using jump scares or like to gross you out. But it uses the environment to enhance your senses, which is really clever. And it's like, you know, it's taking you on that journey of a person that's not only having to deal with enemies in the world, but within their mind as well. It really explores that issue of mental health and, you know, the challenges you go through to tackle it.
Yeah, that's a really, really good example.
Yeah, I think that's really clever. Like, instead of just explaining and making it a game about a boring, you know, documentary sort of style, they use that to completely bring out a different perspective on mental health, which is absolutely insane, but it's so original. So that's what music can do. It can turn a game from being just a standard off-the-shelf game to an original masterpiece.
Yeah. So we've started to bring up some examples now. So this leads nicely on to the next topic, really, which is, what is your favourite video game soundtrack or piece of music from a video game? And what reasons do you have for liking that piece of music or that soundtrack?
I'll go first for this one.
I'll go next.
So I had to rummage around as to like what really got to me, and I think I'd have to say this one happened in Dragon Age Inquisition. So like the whole game is about you becoming like a divine all of a sudden. Like you've been blessed, or that's what the people of the world think. And like a dark age has come, and you're like the shining light, and you can choose to be that shining light or not. And amongst all the chaos and the world disorder and the unbeatable enemy that's coming after you, everything seems like at a loss. But like, there's this scene in which it's called "The Dawn Will Come." I think Sakife knows about this one.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've heard it.
Yeah. So like the main base, which had loads of refugees and all that, was like destroyed by a massive monster army. And like they're on the run throughout the snowy mountains, and it's like everyone's losing hope, all their morale's gone, and it's like, you know, all of a sudden people start singing together one by one throughout this camp, and
Hmm.
until they're singing in unison, and it's mainly the voices that are singing, but there's also a fade in of like the background instrumental music that adds to it. But it really invokes the idea of hope and to not give up in times of great trials, you know.
See, that kind of reminds me of a Pirates of the Caribbean movie where they did that. It's like the little kids started singing this pirate
Oh
shanty.
yeah,
Yeah, you know it.
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
that in the
and then
third one?
I think I think so. I think it's the beginning, and then like the whole the whole I think the whole town. I think it was the island of Tortuga, the pirate island.
Yeah,
And they
was it
were-
the second? Was it the second one rather than the third one?
I think it's the second. I don't know. I can't remember off the tip of the tongue, but it was when they're all about to get executed. What the boys started singing, then the rest of the whole town started singing. It was pretty amazing. Yeah, but Kurt, you finished with your point.
Yeah.
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 So I'd say I wouldn't say that it's not automatically done in the game, but it's Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain. So I'd say the music in that game is completely original. Like every single soundtrack, every single cutscene, every single mission that you're on, it starts or has or ends with amazing songs. But there's the one part that was my favorite part, and it's like every single trip or journey that you could do, or any type of mission that you take place, you can actually play the music that you want. So every time there was a helicopter coming to pick you up, I'd probably put the song Phantom Pain on, and it was just amazing because it would just make you feel like, oh wow, like you're like this legendary character just getting picked up, and it just creates that atmosphere in your head. And every single time you go to a new zone, or you know, there's like a cutscene, like whenever you have to deal with like Skullface, who's one of the characters in the game. No spoilers, don't worry, I won't spoil it if anyone hasn't played it. But it has such dramatic music, and it has the right appropriate timings of when to play it and when to not. And that's all I'll say. That it just handles music well.
I think on that the idea of changing the music throughout the games on the Grand Theft Auto series. You know, when you're driving around in a car and you can select so many different types, the radio stations, and there's so many different vibes that you get from the radio stations driving around. It gives you a completely different spin each time you're getting a different car or whatever.
Yeah.
Each different kind of piece of music can put a completely different spin on what's occurring in the game at that time.
Yeah, GTA is a really, really good example because it's all mainstream music, but it really can change the atmosphere depending on what radio station you're listening to.
But at the same time, it's unlike a lot of other video games because they don't have music. While it's a bit more like real life because they don't have music going on when you're just walking down the street. You hear the music playing in game, but you don't hear background music. You hear sounds of the world around you, and it's completely different than any other video game I've played.
Like with GTA, I think another great aspect of the music part is that it lets you choose. So it doesn't restrict itself to like a little bubble, but it has. I don't know. I didn't count the scroll wheel. It wasn't it like I think it's like 20 plus or something radio stations with different types.
And each one has hundreds of songs on it as well.
Exactly. It's not just stuck to like 5 or 6. You know, it's got like Mark said, hundreds. It's like lots.
But I remember reading when Grand Theft Auto 5 first came out, there was some controversy because it was the first Grand Theft Auto game that had music playing during the missions, and
Really?
people were complaining, saying that it was removing sort of the immersion and the realism. Particularly, I'm trying to think of the exact missions. I think the first mission, when you're doing the bank heist up in North Yankton, that one has music playing as you're driving away. And then there's another one, I think it's when Michael and Trevor are exiled out of Los Santos. There's a bit there where the music starts playing, and then at the end, in the last missions, music starts playing as well. And people were up in arms about it for a while. I found that really interesting.
Didn't know about that.
It's amazing what people can get wound up by, because I'd never thought about that before, but they are, in a way, right. Like, you don't just walk down the street and music suddenly starts playing.
So I think like in uncalled situation, it has to be done right. Like it's one of those things where you can't just shove it in there for no reason.
It's got to be in there for a reason.
Exactly. It's got to have, first of all, it has to have a reason. It has to suit the situation that you're in. The timing has to be pretty much on point. I mean, give or take a couple of seconds, yeah, alright. But, it's got to be there, and it has to make that impact. Do you think it would add to the game or take it away? Like, right now, I'm playing Monster Hunter World a lot. And, well, like I said earlier, like, whenever you fight the boss, it's a different, like, music scenario. But whenever you're like walking around the map and collecting items and stuff, it's just a peaceful, calm, depends on what area you're in type of music. So I love that contrast, and it's like even when you're about to get spotted by the giant monsters, it has that little like sneaky sort of music where like you're getting there's a little tension, it's rising up. That it just comes together so perfectly.
As I say, it's all about creating that right atmosphere. And just one note in that piece of music out of place, and it can completely change the emotion that you're supposed to feel. John, what examples do you have?
I think I've got 3 examples. I'm going to be greedy and say a whole 3.
Yeah.
So I think the first example I'm going to go for is a little one of the lesser known games, but it really should have had a sequel, Star Wars Republic Commando.
Okay.
And the music in that, it was this kind of the Star Warsy music, but that was the first time I'd really kind of interacted with the music going on in the background while it's kind of this fast-paced first-person shooter. And one of the things about that was it had the detail in the Foley. So you were going around shooting drones or like smashing at lizards or things like that, and each time you like killed a drone, it made a different kind of robotic dying sound.
Yeah.
And then if you were killing lizards or whatever, then all this blood would come, or lizard blood would come splurting out. It would land on your visor, and you would hear it land on your visor. And then they had a kind of a bonus. They had a bonus disc for that. On there they had a video going through kind of how they made loads of the Foley sounds for that game, and that kind of got me into the idea of, wow, this is actually, there's so much work goes into it. And yeah, my second one, I'm gonna carry on this vein of kind of when I first went the first experiences or whatever. The Tom Clancy game, Hawks, it has this kind of really expansive kind of orchestral soundtrack, and it fits beautifully because you're flying high above the clouds or whatever, and then there's just this rich orchestral texture, and it's as if the orchestra's playing, and they are the orchestra. The orchestral sound is the music. The music is the earth below you, and it's just this. You can see the sky, the horizon, and everything, and it's just stretching out for miles and miles and miles, and it just fits perfectly.
And your third example?
Oh yes, I was going to do a third one tonight. What was it now? The Call of Duty 4, the mission. What's the mission called? The one where the sniping mission.
All gillied up.
All gillied up. The tense music in that, where you're hiding from the when you're hiding in the grass and the tanks and the guys with guns are passing you by.
Yeah.
That's playing that, especially like the first time doing that was rather intense.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, you can feel them passing by, and there's this kind of pulsating beat in the background, and you're thinking, "Come on, just get past me, so I can just carry on with the mission or whatever." And then further on in the mission, there was dogs and whatever, and you could hear them coming, but when you're going through this town, you don't know where they are, and I just found that a bit scary.
No, I remember playing that mission, and I was tense the whole way through. Even when I finished it, I was still sort of tensing up.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause they did such a good job with that whole mission. It's probably one of the best missions in video gaming, I would say. Right, yeah, I have a few examples of soundtracks and pieces of music. So I'll talk about ones that have sort of been mentioned before. I thought when Sakife started talking about Phantom Pain, he was going to mention Quiet's theme. Have you guys heard that?
What Quiet's theme?
Quiet's theme from Metal Gear Solid 5. It kind of comes out of nowhere, because it's the end of her story arc in the game, and the whole way through the game you hear her humming over the radio, and you don't really know what it is. It's just, I've heard people call it annoying because you just hear this constant humming, buzzing noise coming from her throughout. And then right at the end of her story arc, as she exits the story, her theme starts playing, and it turns out she's been humming it the whole way through.
Wow.
And it's such a well written piece of music. The lyrics are great, the melody is fantastic, and it's one of those moments where I didn't really feel much connection to the game or the character until that moment, and then you start choking up because it's just that powerful. So I'm surprised Sakife didn't mention that one. But I mean, the Phantom Pain has some really good pieces of music in it, so there's quite a lot to choose from. The other one, the soundtrack, Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 immediately spring to mind. I always think Fallout 4 has this really sort of powerful beat going on in the background, so whenever you're fighting enemies, you really feel like you're taking them on one-on-one kind of thing because of the way the music's been set up. And there's one particular moment in Fallout 4 which I won't mention now, I'll mention it on the next topic, but just the way it all comes together in that moment is so well done, and they carried it on into Fallout 76. My favourite piece of music in 76, I can't remember what it's called, but if you remember the first trailer, when Country Roads is playing, there's one piece of music in Fallout 76 that has the same set of notes in the same order, so it almost sounds like it's going to break into it, but it doesn't quite. I find that really good. The Fallout 4 theme, and actually all the Fallout themes, because they're all pretty much the same, except for 76. And I know we've talked about Fallout 76 before, and I've already mentioned that music can be a signifier. That was kind of the first hint for me that Fallout 76 wasn't going to be a normal Fallout game, was the choice of music for the trailer, and then the choice of music for the menu screen as well. Because you're so used to the Fallout theme. Like even like Fallouts 1 and 2 had it, Fallout 3 had it, New Vegas had it, Fallout 4 had it, and then you go into Fallout 76 and it's a brand new theme, and straight away you think, this is different. And then you start playing the game and you realise everything's different, and the music was the big hint. But yeah, the Fallout soundtracks have always been personal favourites of mine. My all-time favourite soundtrack is Grand Theft Auto Vice City, particularly Flash FM. Some of the songs on there, they're personal favourites of mine anyway, and the fact that they're real songs as well is so much better because I can just listen to them whenever I want.
That was a good game. Good soundtrack there.
It's as you said, they get it so right every time with the choices of songs for the radio, and it just creates this real immersive world. It's really, really well done. A few honourable mentions as well, talking about Rockstar. I've heard the Red Dead soundtracks are quite good. I don't know if anyone has played them and can vouch for that, but
Never played them.
there is the first Red Dead Redemption. There's a song where you enter Mexico for the first time. I've heard it played, and it captures that essence of going lone wander on a journey into a new world kind of vibe. But yeah, it's really, really well done. Huge kudos to Rockstar and to Bethesda for getting good composers on board. So we'll segue on a little bit more. We've talked about favourite game soundtracks and pieces of music. Sort of to expand on that a little bit, what was the first time and what was the best time that music gave you the chills whilst playing a game? I can lead if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So I alluded to it, Fallout 4. The first... There was a few times before that. Saints Row the Third was the first time I sort of heard a piece of music at a particular point of the game and sort of felt like, this is awesome. And I think they used it in the trailer as well. It was the mission where you skydive into the apartment building to take it over as your own, and Kanye West starts playing. I don't like Kanye West particularly. I don't like his music, and I certainly don't like him as a person. But that one song fitted perfectly with what you were doing in the game. And I restarted the game about 7 times in a row just so I could replay that mission over and over again because of that one piece of music. I think it's called, is it Power? The Power, something like that. I can't remember the exact title.
Oh yeah.
But it just fitted perfectly.
I agree. That was a good one. That was.
And another one from Saints Row was the ending of that game, where you have to try and save Shaun and the other woman whose name I can't remember. And I Need a Hero starts playing. Because it kind of does the opposite. Like the Kanye West one makes you feel like you're a superhero skydiving into a building, whereas the other one, it has like the comedic element to it. So like, I think one of them actually says "I need a hero," and then the song starts playing. And again, it's like one of those kick-ass, badass moments of hell yeah, I can do this kind of thing. Like the music is the anthem for what you're doing in the game.
I haven't played the Saints Row 3, but I've played Saints Row 4, and on the first mission of that, it had one of those kind of moments. And you started off, and you had to, there was a missile or something, and you had to get to the missile and disable it or whatever.
Yeah.
And it launched, and you're hanging on for it, and you're taking it apart or whatever on clearly a suicide mission, and then you're going away from all the other people on your team, whatever, and they start playing what is it? Aerosmith. Don't Want to Miss a Thing. And that hit me quite heavily. I really wasn't expecting it. I think it's a really emotional song, but when you put it in a situation like that, it has quite an impact.
Especially, I mean that song especially. You think of Armageddon as well, and how it was used there.
Yeah.
It really does strike the right chord, if you pardon the pun. How about you then, Kurt?
Okay. So this one, you'll probably know, the Lone Wolf mission on Halo Reach, the last mission.
Yes.
There's a track that plays at the very beginning, just as like it exits the cutscene and into gameplay. It lasts like 5 seconds, but it's a piano type tune, and it's very powerful because after all this hard work of fighting, it's an unbeatable enemy, and like you're the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah.
But it's like no other game has an ending where you will die, yet you can still fight to the death and take out as many of the enemies with you. And it's like when that piano plays, it's those final bells, like letting you know this is your end coming up, so make it count. It's really good.
That is a really excellent example, actually. It's just 5 seconds. That's all it takes. And you just suddenly anyone who plays that game. I know for a fact that me, my brother, and 2 friends were playing Reach. We did the campaign together, and all of us after that last mission just sat there in silence for about an hour. We just did not know how to respond to what just happened.
Yeah, I guess like that sort of thing has a slight different impact, because like if you're playing it solo, it can be more meaningful. But if you're playing like say with the 4 players co-op, you would share that sense of like you lot being the last sacrifice, but it wouldn't be as powerful as if it was just you.
Yeah.
Although it can make it feel deep. It can make it a deeper feeling if there's more of you and you're all sharing that same experience. It's as if you're going through that. It's as if you're actually going through that thing together.
Yeah, it's good if like you're like a squad going out together, like your final showdown. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll have to do a podcast on that in the future, actually. Sort of the difference in emotions between single player and multiplayer.
Yeah, that's the big difference between emotional scenes in films and emotional scenes in video games.
Yeah.
Like in a film, you can watch it and you go, "That's really sad." If you're watching someone fight to the death or whatever, and you can go, that's really hitting me emotionally. But if you're playing as that character in that same scene, it's just so much more. There's so much more emotion to it because you've not actually experienced it, but you've experienced it in a way. It's a different way of experiencing it.
Yeah, there we go. We got a topic for a future podcast. Talk about cinematics in games, like, you know, the cinematography and everything that comes together to make a scene.
I shall write that down now.
Yeah, and that's what I based my dissertation on.
So you have plenty of material then.
Yeah. Yep.
So I do have a couple more examples. I thought
Okay.
I'd let you guys go first.
Yeah.
But because you mentioned Halo, the beginning of Halo 3. So the Halo 2 ends with Master Chief falling out of the... I can't even remember what ship it is now. Is it the Pillar of Autumn?
I think so, yeah.
And it just ends, like black screen. He falls out, black screen. And then Halo 3 opens with Cortana speaking, and then the Halo theme starts playing. And like even then, I've said this before actually on a previous podcast, Christmas Day 2007, got my first ever Xbox, got Halo 3, put it in just thinking, oh, it's going to be another run and gun kind of game, and just saw that scene, and you see like this fireball slowly coming down towards the ground, and then you realise that's Master Chief. And particularly it's that little piano section of the Halo theme. It always strikes the right chord with me. I just love that bit so much. It might even be the same bit from Reach, thinking about it.
Yeah.
So there's that bit. There's also the Warthog chase at the end of Halo 3, where you're trying to get back on the ship with the Halo ring collapsing around you. That's quite a good moment. I mean, the music in Halo in general is just another really, really good example of a perfect soundtrack. But the big one for me, the absolute big one, is Fallout 4, where, because it was so unexpected for me, you go to the castle to reclaim it for the Minutemen, and I got there, you know, I met up with the Minutemen, started heading up towards the main gate, and then the Fallout theme starts playing, and you think, why is that happening? And then the Mirelurk Queen appears, and you think, okay, boss battle. And I mean, I've played Fallout New Vegas. I did pretty much the entire campaign, and you never have that. And Fallout 3, same thing. You never really have a boss battle at the end. And it's even though it's not even at the end of the game, it's sort of the end of the first act if you do the quests in the right order. But it felt like this big cinematic climax because, you know, the theme tune's playing. There's this big enemy. How are you going to take it out?
Yeah.
And yeah, just I've always loved the Fallout themes, and to hear it actually in the game rather than just on the menu screen, that was a real powerful moment. But yeah, does anyone have any more examples?
I talked about it earlier, but the game Hawks, it's this really the cinematic soundtrack that it felt like it was the horizon ahead of you or whatever, but it just felt it made you feel like you're this person who's kind of proud to be doing what they're doing. It made you feel like you're part of this cinematic experience. And there's a lot of games with kind of cinematic soundtracks, but it's getting it right. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the Call of Duty games are good example because they've got kind of well, it's a more kind of industrial sound with Call of Duty, but the Battlefield games, in particular, when you hear the Battlefield theme going on in there, big orchestra going on, and you know you're in the middle of something big.
Yeah. So John, I can't say my words. You are our musician.
I am indeed.
So all of our audience members, if you are a big fan of the XVI theme tune, then John is the composer of that. What musical inspirations have you had in the past, and how do you feel that they're reflected in your work?
Far too many. Mainly the fact that I can't quite pin myself down to a certain style yet. So I started learning piano when I was 6. So I've been doing classical piano for kind of my whole musical career, as it was. And then when I was doing my GCSEs, I liked to do piano. I never liked to practice, and I liked to when I was practicing, I always liked to play the music in the way I thought it ought to be played, and so I had to do music composition for my GCSE music, and I thought this is alright. So I did a competition with the Royal Opera House, and played and had my music recorded by the orchestra there. So I went into for a couple of years. I went into kind of an orchestral Hans Zimmer neoclassical kind of style. But then again, at the same time, I've always been brought up on a my dad is quite an avid fan of kind of 60s, 70s rock, so all the classic rock kind of stuff. So I was classical music and rock, and then being a pianist, I moved further into kind of electronics and synthesizers, and then that brought me into music production. So that's where we end up at for the music for the XVI theme, because it's quite an electronic soundtrack.
Yeah.
And that's probably the influence from that stems from when I did a couple of pieces of electro swing. So yeah, my main influences, rock, pop, electronic, and classical. A bit of jazz, but not as much jazz as I like.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I kind of got that impression anyway, because for those of you that want to check out John's music, wisethemusic.com. There's your plug for this week.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, there's a myriad of different styles on there, so you can kind of see that you're very much interested in trying out lots of different styles for lots of different projects. I think that's a good aspect to have.
Yeah, because I've been trying to. I've had a lot of people say as kind of a criticism, "Oh, you don't have a style. You don't have a specific style," and I'm there thinking, I don't really want a specific style, but kind of I wouldn't want to limit myself that much, because my last album, here's I'm doing another plug here. My last album that I released, the Filling the Void, it had rock, pop, electronic, drum and bass, techno. It's kind of a whole mixed bag of things, but it's kind of, for me, it's not the genre, it's the way you go about creating the music. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
And it's the underlying message that's the important bit. It's not the genre. You can blur genres together, but yeah.
I sort of think back to the day that we pitched the idea for the XVI theme to you, and like we came up with all sorts of weird and random words for what it was we were trying to capture in the theme, and somehow you managed to take all of this randomness that we produced and you created this piece of music. So well done for that.
Cool. Cheers. I think the biggest problem was that you wanted you were going for kind of a Band of Brothers kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Whilst being electro swing, and it was a difficult thing to say. How do you put the two of those together? But the overall kind of message from XVI, it's a bit of a cheeky but serious kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Because like when we were sort of conceptualizing it, I wanted something more of a like a drum-based fanfare kind of thing, whereas I know Kurt, you wanted something a bit more upbeat and light-hearted.
Yeah.
So sort of, we had a few creative differences, let's say, on it, but I think my problem was I wanted it to be this kind of we're here, we've arrived kind of thing, and I wasn't really considering the fact that we're going to have to use it for all of our projects in the future as well. So as soon as I realised that, it was kind of, okay, yeah, we obviously have an identity that we need to stick with, so let's create some music that reflects that. And as it happens, the XVI theme is perfect for that.
Love to hear.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good job. I look forward to hearing the music that you create for our games as well.
Yes, so am I. I'm quite looking forward to the challenge of making music for the games. We'll see what comes out of the music. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm thinking we could always. I'm envisaging a kind of orchestral version of the XVI theme at some point, kind of Duel of Fate style.
Okay.
Oh, I
You know-
really want to hear that now.
At the beginning of the XVI theme, it says XVI.
Yeah.
Thinking that, but stretched out like Duel of Fates, like XVI kind of.
That would be brilliant. We'll have to for 1 week. We'll have to change our podcast theme just to that. See if anyone notices.
I'll be creating the music for a whole year just for that.
That sounds brilliant. I really can't wait to hear that. And I think again that the Meet the Team video that we have on our channel, I spent weeks and weeks and weeks trying to think of a way to create that video, and I was trying to create something and then try and fit music to it. Whereas as soon as you created the theme for us, it all kind of fell into place. It's like, it's really upbeat, light-hearted music, so let's make an upbeat, light-hearted video to match it. So all the slightly comedic stats that we all have, none of which are actually true, by the way, for those of you that are curious. It's only the text box at the bottom that's true to form. The rest of it all came about because of that piece of music. So it kind of goes back to the theme of this podcast, really, as to how music can create the atmosphere. So we have kind of one more topic to discuss. It's probably going to be a very short topic, but who are our favourite video game composers, if we have them? And I know we were talking before about we don't necessarily know the names of composers, so I'm going to do some very quick Googling. So if you name games that you are fans of the soundtrack, I'm going to look up who the composer was.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna throw out there. Hans Zimmer's a very good composer. He does a lot of video games, but Harry Gregson Williams, he did I believe he did the Call of Duty 4 theme.
Oh yeah.
He worked on it with a chap called what was he called?
Let me check for you.
With Stephen Barton.
I think I know that name. I think I've heard that name somewhere before.
Stephen Barton did the music for Titanfall and Titanfall 2 and Apex Legends.
That's a good piece of music. When you're dropping in on Apex Legends, that gives me the chills as well whenever I play that. That's a really good. Okay, big shout out to you then for creating that music. That is awesome. Kurt, do you have any examples? Anyone you'd like me to?
Okay, so I don't know whether this was made for the video game or whether they composed it themselves and then the company of this video game took it. But back to Dragon Age Inquisition, there's a remaster or their own spin-off of What a Wonderful World.
Okay.
And it's by Joseph William Morgan and Shadow Royale. And they turn a beautiful song into a dark and twisted ambient track, to reflect the world disorder that is happening in Dragon Age Inquisition. So it really complements one another.
I'll say I've just googled it quickly. It looks like it was created for the game. But Joseph William Morgan has done some covers of lots of different famous songs. So it sounds like it's a trait of his.
I'm going to jump in on the famous covers one. I can't remember if it was actually included in the game or not, but the trailer for Battlefield 1, they had what was it called?
Seven Nation Army was.
No, not they did that. That was really good. But A Dream a Little Dream of Me.
Oh,
yeah. You know the one.
Beautiful South.
Yeah, and they had that kind of really eerie version with all the war going on.
Yeah.
I found the Seven Nation Army one really works, but that Dream a Little Dream of Me.
We've kind of gone off on a segue here, but I think this is kind of good. Like video game trailer music. There's some really good ones.
I think we need to do another podcast on that.
Might have
yeah,
to.
it needs its own podcast. It's too big a rabbit hole.
Because even now I'm thinking of more examples of like pieces of music in video games that give the chills. Like Mad World in Gears of War 3. How did I forget
Oh,
that?
yeah. Yeah.
How did I forget that? That is one of the best pieces of music in video gaming.
Or like the Remember Reach trailer.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a good one.
I will do a quick one for trailer music. Is the first E3 trailer for Halo 3, where it's got Master Chief running through like a whole field of Covenant with the Halo theme playing, and then at the end he just jumps off the cliff with his shotgun in his hand. That was a good one. And I've just thought of another soundtrack as well that I can't believe I didn't mention. The Planet Coaster soundtrack. What an amazing just collection of songs there as well. I'm just looking up who composed it quickly. Jim Guthrie and J.J. Ibsen, I think it is. Yes, Jim Guthrie and J.J. Ibsen. For those of you who are watching this who are also fans of M4J, my turn for self-promotion now. I actually use the Planet Coaster soundtrack in a lot of my time-lapse videos because it's just got that I can't even think of the words to describe it. It just fits perfectly with what I'm trying to do. And for ages, I used to watch other YouTubers who were doing time lapses, and they had this really nice music playing. And I spent ages trying to find what the music was, and it was the Planet Coaster soundtrack. It just fits with whatever scenario you can think of. It just fits, and I think that's brilliant. And all the pieces of music have really funny names as well. Like they're all puns or just random quotes. It's brilliant. It's really, really good. Yumi and Gravity is the name of the Planet Coaster soundtrack. For anyone who wants to look it up.
Nice.
I'm gonna chuck another one out there with trailers or whatever.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed Syndicate, if I can say it right. With that Heat of the Moment, by what's his name, Noel Gallagher.
Oh yeah.
I think they had a remix in it. Absolutely cracking trailer there. And there's a really badass sounding. I mean, Assassin's Creed is badass enough, but you've got this absolutely cracking song going on in the background. Pretty that worked really well.
Now you've mentioned Assassin's Creed, I'm thinking of the Revelations trailer as well. Woodkid Iron. That's a really good trailer. I bought the game purely because of that trailer, so it certainly did its job.
Yeah.
Oh, I just wish I could put snippets of these trailers into our podcast, but we would get in a lot of trouble for that, unfortunately. There's so many good examples. If anyone out there is watching, Google all of these that we've mentioned.
You could always just pop up links on each one that comes up.
Yeah, I'll have to put annotations somewhere with the links. The links will be in the description as well, definitely.
You'll end up with a screen. You'll end up with a whole window full of them.
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking maybe not in the description. Maybe it'll be a pinned comment.
Yeah.
Along with the timestamps or something like that. It'll be somewhere for you guys to check out because these are really, really good pieces of music by really, really talented composers. But yeah, I think we're all musiced out now. We've had a really good discussion. So if anyone has any more examples, I'm sure we'll fit those in really, really quickly. But if not, we'll start wrapping up.
I think I'll save it for a different.
I have one, but I don't know whether to save it or not.
Go on.
One last honorable mention.
Yeah.
For myself. A little game called This War of Mine.
Oh no. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's got this all the way through when you're just during the daytime and people are just dying and you can't actually do anything to help them, or they're just lying around your house, and there's all this war in the background. It's all this wars in the kind of the far distance reverby, but there's just this kind of sorrowful piano going on, and it's just really, really depressing. But then it gets different when you get to it gets intense when you go into the evening. But during the day, you can feel their pain as they're going around the house doing nothing, just war that's going on, and it's just makes it feel so sad.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example to end it on. Again, audience, if there's any other examples that you guys can think of, feel free to add them in the comments down below. If you want us to do a whole other podcast based on like reviewing trailers or talking about music in trailers or moments in trailers, let us know again down in the comments. We're happy to do that if there's enough people that would like it. But yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up here. So a big thanks to my guests, to Kurt, to Sakife, who did have to step away partway through, unfortunately, and to John.
Thank you.
for having me.
No problem at all. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Share the video as well with as many people as you can. Literally go out on the street and shout about it if you have to. Also hit the subscribe button and click the bell notification so that you never miss an XVI upload. Thank you once again for watching, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.